On the microphones, pure and uncensored American straight talk. Never quit. You're locked and loaded with Chris Peranto and Ian Scotto. This is the Battleline Podcast.
Battleline Podcast. I am Ian Scotto. Chris Peranto is not here, but please don't tune out immediately. I feel like some people are going to be like, what? No Chris Peranto? And then they are going to listen to the show. I promise you this will be entertaining because with me in studio is Kate Hyde, who many of you know from Twitter, or many of you may not know from Twitter. What's
Probably
going on?
not.
I mean, it's weird for me to even say what's going on because I try to be completely transparent. We both live in New York, took the train here together.
That's home for me. Came in from there today with you. Yeah.
And it was a weird conversation because you and I were like, I don't want to say anything that's going to be too interesting because we want to save it for air.
Yes.
So we were like, let's think of some vague topics and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we actually record the show.
We had a lot of awkward small talk because we'd get into something really good and then just both find ourselves being silent because we were like, oh, we'll save that for air.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, for the listeners, do you want to just talk about your background? I feel the one thing I will say before we get into your background is we've talked about Dwyer a whole bunch on this podcast, and I feel like he's always mentioned, but he's like this common thread among many of us, and I know you because of Dwyer.
Yes.
He
introduced us.
Yeah, and you were saying, I thought it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago at a holiday party while you were at American Military News.
Yes. Yeah. I can't believe we're sitting here talking about Drew in this way. It's incredibly unfortunate. But yeah, Drew, incredible guy. He introduced us. He introduced me to a lot of people. It was awesome for my career. He was one of those dudes that was always looking out. He would invite me to things like where I met you. That was a soft rep party. He just said, hey, this is, you're in this industry. Come along. There's a ton of people for you to meet and, come and I've got your back. He was a great friend, great guy. He was always out there just doing good things. And I can't believe that he's gone.
Yeah, he was such a nice guy, and we have all these like great pictures of
yes.
three of us or you with his wife Fran, and yeah, I mean we just haven't had anything but good things to say about him. And as Chris said on the first episode, I think it was the first, he was like he would definitely be here with us, probably in the background, barely talking, but he would be there just because I said after the first episode I had this urge. Many times I have an urge to call him. Because he was the guy, if I had some fun news to say, hey, man, I'm starting a podcast with Tonto, and he'd be so excited about it. And I can't do that anymore. It just sucks.
Yeah. And we were talking about it earlier. That was one of the things we stopped talking about was on your podcast with him before. You guys gave me a nice shout out before.
Yes.
About, my incident. And it was really fun to listen to.
Do you want to mention that incident? It was
sure.
Fucking crazy. Yeah.
It was nuts. Yeah. 3 years ago now. I was on the subway and I caught a guy taking a picture up my skirt. And, I was alone on the subway. It was dark out. I was coming from my friend's place in Queens and I was going to Woodside so that I could then take the LIRR home. But I'm not that familiar with Queens. I only know a certain part. So yeah, I was on the subway alone. I feel something on my leg. I see the guy with the camera recording and I said, what do I do? I said it to myself and I just thought, I know I can say something to him and I know I can take his picture. We're in public. So that's what I did. I took his picture. I called my cop friend. I said, I called him out and I said, I know you just took a picture of my skirt. And he was like, oh no. And he's laughing. He knew what he was doing. And so I ended up sharing the picture. Went to the cops.
And it got a lot of retweets because even at that time, you didn't have a huge following, but you had some following.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that I wanted to spread it because there was no question as to what he did. And I mean, looking back, I don't know if I would do that again because I don't know. It's just, again, I think maybe now with a bigger following that's more risky. I don't know. But I should have, ultimately, the cops posted his picture up in the subways and they caught him and he pled guilty and they gave me a restraining order against the guy or whatever it is.
What happened to him?
I don't know. I mean, I know his name and his address, and I don't know what happened to him. I know his wife was mad. His wife was the one that saw the picture up on the subway.
You know, there's probably military guys listening who are like, say his address. So to his house.
I don't know if he still lives there. I think my restraining order, whatever it was that they gave me, is up after 2 years. But it was one of those situations that at the time I felt so uncomfortable. And you know, granted, nothing happened. It was the middle of winter. It was December.
But you shouldn't even say nothing happened, because that alone
of course.
happening.
No. I just mean a lot worse could have happened, I guess. And I also knew with the angle and everything, it was a failed attempt. So even on top of it, I just knew it's not like he was getting anything good. I just caught him in the act. But it was troubling. It was scary. And I felt so violated. And it was one of the few times in my life that I really just felt just completely violated, completely alone. I felt like the other people on the subway were kind of just laughing at it, because what can you do? I was kind of glad. I don't want to say glad that it happened to me, but if it was going to happen to anyone, I was glad that it did happen to me instead of someone else, because other people were like, why didn't you kick his phone? I would have beat him up. And I was like, no, I don't want to get myself into more trouble. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not taking the subway any deeper into Queens. Get out somewhere. I don't know where I'm going or what to do. I knew I could take his picture and I could talk to him and I could call him out. That was all I could do. So I was glad that at least in that sense, I didn't put myself into more danger and ultimately got this guy caught so that he didn't go do it to someone else. Or if he did, I don't know.
So
Hopefully not.
That was one of the connections, though, as we gave Throw Punch of the Week to that guy, and you were saying that you heard that. I kind of forgot about it. It's been so long.
Yeah,
but
it was just a very sweet gesture of you guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, we were all just like, what a scumbag move. Let's call this guy out. But getting into everything, as I said, for the people listening, who is Kate Hyde? What is your background? I know, but it's I think the audience would like to hear it from you. So
yeah, like I was saying before, I mean, really, I'm Kate Hyde. I'm on Twitter, and I don't have much more of a background that's of interest to people. I don't really have a public thing going on. I'm not in the media. I don't have a book. I'm not selling anything. But what I like is to make fun of politics and culture in the world, and the best place to do that is Twitter. So I've gained a little following, and it's
more than a little following. I think you have a really big following, especially for someone, as you said, who's not out in the public sphere in any other way but Twitter. So
yeah, I'm not downplaying it.
How big is your following again?
I think I'm at 19,000.
I think that's pretty damn respectable.
I love every single person that follows me. I absolutely love that a dumb joke that I put out there could be of interest to someone, and if people enjoy it, that's what can you do? So 19,000.
But you're really good at it, and haven't you written for various shows?
Yeah, I used to, it's one of those things that it doesn't even register in my brain. But yeah, I used to write. I used to write the National Police Blotter on for a show, The Morning Blaze with Doc and Skip. Doc Thompson, another friend of mine I used to work with, he also unfortunately died this year. So I just can't believe I'm sitting here saying all this.
That was this year? I feel like it was a while ago. Okay.
Yeah, it was February.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I wrote for them, and it was this it was another thing that I was friends with Skip, but Doc saw me on Twitter and just said, hey, we have this segment. I think you might be good at it. Do you want to give it a shot? Just because you're so out there on Twitter, you seem like it would be a good fit. So I did that. I did that for a year. I loved it. It was just taking criminal news and going wild with it. And it was a great segment. So yeah, I wrote for radio. As you mentioned, I worked at American Military News. I started there just writing political pieces, and then
which admittedly you always say was not really your strong suit. You prefer to just make fun of politics, and like, for example, you will live tweet a Democratic town hall or the Democratic debate,
yes,
and make some funny comments that sometimes go viral because you're clever like that. You're able to think of things off the top of your head, and you're not someone who likes to write serious pieces.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm not good with the serious stuff, and that's what I said. That was such a great opportunity. I ended up moving up to news director there, and I did love it for what it was. But there was a certain point where I just said, I want this company to keep going on without me, because you have so much more than I'm capable of giving. And to me, it's exactly what you said. It's not even like I like to crack. I don't find myself funny. What I find is I like to have fun, and Twitter's a good place to invite other people to have fun with you.
But you are funny.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
I mean, because you and I were discussing in the green room, we were saying like which tweets you've had that have gone viral. The biggest one of which I think would be you flying the drone and then flying it into your face.
No, that one doesn't, that's not.
People know that one though, because
yes.
I think it's at the top of your page, pinned. Yeah,
it's my pinned tweet. It's the drone hitting me in the face.
Which isn't like a witty or clever thing. But most people would not put that up. They'd be too embarrassed. And you're like, I'm putting this up.
Yeah. No, it was a great moment. I was out flying my drone. I think that was maybe the second day I had it. And I was just giving it a shot. And I had forgotten that happened. And then I was looking back at the footage and I was like, oh, I got that? Like, great. What do I do with this? So I just put it on Twitter. And now people know me as that. I have been approached in public and people have said, oh my God, you're the drone girl. I live for that. That's great.
The tweet that I always remember that went viral that I just thought was the funniest, I remember laughing out loud when I saw it, was someone before you tweeted that there was like a woman's campaign on Bounty. Bounty makes what's called paper towels. Yeah. Losing my thought here. And you tweeted that, right? You retweeted that tweet and wrote, "Finally, a company progressive enough to put women on cleaning products," yeah. And which I thought was hilarious.
And I had forgotten about that tweet till you brought it up.
And that had like tens of thousands of retweets, if I remember correctly. It was huge.
I don't remember. I don't think that's right, but. I'm glad.
But I think part of the appeal is they're like, this is an attractive young woman who's able to poke fun at this. If it was a guy who tweeted that, I don't think it would get the same traction.
Right.
Because they'd be like, oh, this is some sexist, misogynist guy on Twitter. You're able to poke fun at everything.
Well, I think the thing is that, I think a lot of people do it fearlessly where they say, I don't care who's making fun of me, but it's fun when I'm also able to do it and people can't say, oh, well, who are you to say that? It's like, I'm a woman. It's funny. And that's why when someone else says it, a man or someone who doesn't, shouldn't be allowed to say such things. It's like, why not? Like, we should all be having fun with it. So I feel like it's part of my duty to, like, I think women are horrible drivers. And I think that is something that shouldn't be overlooked. And I'm the first one to say, if there's a car accident, it's probably a woman, because someone's got to say it. I'm just saving the men from having to, look bad.
What were some of your other like huge tweets besides that? Because they don't know, those stick out in my memory in particular.
I remember one that actually made me a little bit sad afterwards because it was about them finding really old cheese in Egypt, I think. And this one got a lot of traction very quickly, but they found old cheese and I forget if they said it had fungus on it or whatever. And I said like, oh, Chipotle will take it. But I love Chipotle. So this went, got a lot of traction, a lot of sharing, and people were like, aha, yeah, because, Chipotle is always making people sick and whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know that's true. That's the joke. But I don't want them to think that, like, it doesn't keep me from eating there almost every day, Yeah. So it was really funny that it seemed like I was trying to take Chipotle down with that one. I don't. I didn't mean to be mean.
But you also can't overthink it in the moment.
No,
You're like, if I have a good tweet of something that's trending, you got to just go for it.
And Chipotle, I mean, let's be real. They're known for making people sick, every 6 months? There's some new thing going on there. I'm willing to risk it. I think, it's worth it. But some people, they just write it off after that. So they're known for it. That's their problem.
Are there others that stand out to you?
I don't know. I like the ones that there was one time I took a video of Acosta on TV. He wasn't doing anything particularly fancy. I think he was standing outside the White House. But I did one of those, where it like puts a mask over him. I don't even remember what it was. I think it was around Halloween.
Like Snapchat or something?
Yeah, it was like a Snapchat thing. I don't use Snapchat, but yeah, the Snapchat filter. It was exactly like that. And I put up some joke about it. And I do go after Acosta sometimes because I think he can be a bit ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
But this one wasn't anything personal, and I don't think I said anything bad. But Acosta ended up retweeting it or quote tweeting it and saying something and made fun of himself too. And I was so happy because, again, that one got a lot of traction. But I was like, this is what Twitter's for. Because the fact that he could see it, not be offended by it, continue on in the joke when he's such a, he seems so uptight and snooty.
And thinks he's like a hero of the First Amendment.
And, all of that. Now, saying it's a dangerous time to tell the truth in America. Like, oh, okay. To hit him on that sort of stuff and then to have a moment where it was just something really silly and fun, and that one again got a lot of traction. That one made me happy because it made everyone happy.
And also, if you're able to poke fun at yourself, it'll fade away, and people will be like, "This guy could take a joke." Because I always think of I remember like went viral just all over the internet when Mike Francesa from Sports Radio 66 fell asleep on the air, and people called him like days on end after that, and just made jokes about him falling asleep. Like they would pick up, a fan's call, and he'd be like, "Oh, sorry, I fell asleep there, Mike," and just like references to the falling asleep. And he is not able to take a joke about himself, so it prolonged the joke.
Oh man!
If he would have been able to laugh at it, I think that it would have gone away quicker.
And see, that's why I was so proud of Acosta in that moment, because Acosta is one of the people that I actually criticize. There's a handful of people at CNN and all over the media. The problem that they're having is that they take everything personally. So it's exactly what you said. Someone could come after them and they take it personal, even if you're not actually going after them. They just feel like it's a hit on them, and their reaction to it, instead of laughing it off or even ignoring it, they end up fueling people. I mean, that's why Trump calls CNN fake news every day. It's because they can't handle it.
Yeah.
They don't know how to react to him, and they're just making it worse. And that's what riles up Trump fans, because it's so much fun to watch them just implode.
Yeah, he admits that certain things he tweets out are just to anger them. The Rocky picture, which at the point of where we're recording this was a few days ago. And then him saying that he was going to serve a third term. Like, he wasn't serious about that. He knows that will rile people up.
And I mean, the GIFs and the pictures.
The CNN. Oh my God, with the WWE.
He knows exactly what he's doing. It's so funny. And if they were the GIF that was put out in 2017. It was the WWE. I think it was CNN was
Vince McMahon, right?
Yes, the CNN logo was put over Vince McMahon's head, and it was when Trump was a guest, and I guess Trump knocked out Vince in that moment. Which I'm a huge WWE fan, so I was like, this is just great all around. And CNN, instead of laughing at it, they took that as a hit on the First Amendment, a hit on free speech, a hit on them as an organization, like they were going to get, all these violent threats and all of that. They ended up actually approaching the guy, not approaching, but they found the guy who made the GIF and asked him. They didn't ask him. They blackmailed him into apologizing, or they would reveal his identity. I mean, if that is not the most overblown reaction to something that really, CNN should be thanking Trump for the ratings that he's giving them, because he's getting people to even pay attention that CNN exists.
Yeah, I wonder what any of these places are going to talk about when he's no longer in power. I mean, I don't watch any network news at all anymore. And when I go over my parents' house, like, I feel like a lot of people our age have tuned out of all of this. Like, they do this. They listen to podcasts. They'll check out clips from mainstream media on Twitter. But, like, people our age are not watching Brian Selter or even, like, Sean Hannity every day.
Except me.
Yeah. I mean, you also do it for the tweets and all that. But I think generally people aren't watching the whole thing. And every time I go over my parents' house, it is all Trump all the time. And it's funny because I often get criticized. When I was doing shows previously, I think the one thing I did take pride in is that I was not for either side. And Jack Murphy, who I worked with, we would call things as we saw them. But lately, people have, I've written stuff about Mike Bloomberg, for example, or Beto O'Rourke, and some of the more anti-Trump people have said on my public Facebook page, like, Ian, how come I never see you talk about Trump or criticize Trump? And my reasoning is it's too much Trump all the time. That whether it's positive or negative, I've had enough of it. I've been tuned out of it. I don't pay attention to the impeachment stuff because it's just nonstop. It's too much. So I don't want to add to that. I'd rather talk about, more recently Mike Bloomberg saying that China is not a dictatorship. That interests me more because anything Trump says, we've all heard about by now from everybody, and we've heard everybody's take. So I don't even feel the need to give my take. So me omitting Trump is not an endorsement or, a criticism of him. It's just I've personally had too much Trump all the time. I don't know if you feel the same. But.
Yeah, no, totally. Listen, the guy is the president of the United States. Of course, he should be covered, but the way he's being covered is insufferable at a certain point. And the impeachment thing is so funny to me because when the impeachment hearings started happening, I was so checked out that I didn't even see it coming. And I'm paying attention here, but it was just this impeachment talk has been happening since he got in.
Yes.
So basically what's happening is they've just been saying from the beginning, they've been promising all of these people who are anti-Trump, don't worry, we'll get him out. He'll be impeached. We'll find a way. So then every day they think they found a new way to get him out. And what happens is no, they don't really have him on impeachable offenses. And what they have him on is a bunch of little things that annoy them, that he does. So it basically, they just want us to look at the big picture of like, look how bad he is. Like, we're just going to frame him as the bad guy, not actually have anything to impeach him on because we've been screaming impeach before he did anything. So I think, and this is one of those things that's very transparent to the general population. But another thing is the general population as a whole, if you're not watching CNN, if you're not in the DC bubble, if you're not, really paying attention, you have no idea what's going on. And I'm not saying that to be mean or say like you don't know what's happening. I'm saying you can't even turn on the news and follow what's happening because it's all so muddy and loud. And when I've been asking so many people like, hey, you pay attention a bit. I know you have the radio on. I know this. Tell me what you think about impeachment. Do you know anything? And they're like, not really. Like, it's not making sense. So I can't follow. I'm like, great. I get that. And I'm over here trying to follow it and I can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's another thing that, there's a lot to be said about it. And that's where I like to have fun with it, but it's insufferable.
Did you see that YouTube video that went around a while ago about the walls are caving in on Trump? And it shows like CNN and MSNBC and even Fox News at times, like every month there's a new bombshell allegation.
Yes.
And this has been going on for the past 3 years at this point, and nothing has really changed.
Right.
So that's why, at least for me, no matter how people feel about it, I can't follow it because I mean, it's just the crying wolf thing. Every month there's a new bombshell, and I every month say nothing is really going to change.
Right. And
that turns out to be correct.
Yeah, and they're weakening the language. Like you said, everything's a bombshell. Everything's a smoking gun. It's the same way that, to hit on CNN again. Or actually, I think most news organizations, the 24-hour news companies have started to do this where they just say breaking news for everything.
Yes.
And
yeah, it's a ratings getter. It's, it keeps people tuned in.
And I'm like, what happens when something really is breaking? It's hard to, decipher. I mean, obviously, you could probably see what's going on, but it's you can't have breaking news every 2 seconds. Breaking news needs to be saved for real breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news should be 9/11.
And bombshell, the same thing.
Yeah, unfortunate the amount of school shootings, that's breaking news, Yeah, it's definitely too much. But speaking of which, so I do believe, and I think most people do, that Trump is at least going to be in power until the next election. We're going to see what happens in the next election. But you've been live tweeting a lot of these town halls and debates.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd love to hear your take on the candidates.
Yeah.
Just in general. I mean, it's been interesting watching all these debates. I haven't watched them in their entirety, but I do catch all the highlights of them. I do have a good grip on what each of the candidates stands for, I feel like. And yeah, just want to hear your take.
Yeah, I actually I only saw the last few debates. I was checked out of, believe it or not, all media over the summer, for most of the summer. So I started tuning into the Democratic debates again more recently. And for the ones I've seen, this last one was the best. It showed, I guess, like the most talent, if you will, to come out of them. Booker, I feel like he really carried himself well, or he proved the most about himself. I'm not saying that that's the most electable, but he had a good time. It was Joe Biden's 77th birthday, and there was a lot of personal news out about him. It just seemed like it was everything imploded on this day. He didn't perform very well during the debates. Now, Joe Biden, I've said before he got into the race that he was going to be the guy. I think it's going to be Biden versus Trump in 2020. And even with everything that they're coming out with Biden, I think it's still going to be him. Even with Bloomberg in, I just don't feel like Bloomberg quite has that traction. Because Biden's really associated with Obama, and people are nostalgic now for Obama, and especially after just after he's gone and we have Trump in, people miss him, and so they're going to associate Biden with him. And Biden's one of those people that I wish that he would retire so that he could be a 77-year-old man, enjoy his life, be the happy-go-lucky guy that he is. I don't feel like he needs to be beaten down anymore.
Yeah.
Politics aside, he seems like a good guy. So I think he's very likable, but I think he's just losing his mind doing all this political stuff. I still think it'll be him.
But a lot of these guys and women who are running for president are in that state of like, I heard Joe Rogan say, like, we're looking at people who are like on death's door to be the next president. I mean, Donald Trump is extremely old. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they're all, Joe Biden, they're all very old. And this is what we have. I personally don't get it, especially I was going to bring him up, but like, I know Andrew Yang was not a fan of the last debate because he got the least speaking time. But whether you like the guy or not, he has a great grip on the challenges coming up in the next few years with automation, artificial intelligence. He's extremely well versed on all that stuff. And it's like I haven't even heard Trump or Biden say anything substantive about these major issues that are on the horizon of millions upon millions of jobs that are going to be replaced by robots in the next few years.
But I mean, do you really think it'll happen in the next few years? I mean, do you think
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because Yang's solution is basically before the robots replace the people, he ideally wants to give $1,000 to everyone a month, right?
Yes, but they're already replacing the people. I mean, the fact that you go to the grocery store and there's a checkout line and all that's replacing jobs, and ATM machines have replaced bank tellers. I know that this is just what happens when technology comes along, but the technology is moving at such a rapid pace within these past few years that, he's talked about before. I was actually just listening to the podcast on Joe Rogan, that the technology is pretty much there to replace truck drivers, which is, I believe, the most popular job in the United States. Like, what happens when all these jobs go away? And it's at the very least something we should be talking about. And he's like the only candidate taking this extremely seriously, and this is like his main platform. I'm very thankful he's out there to talk about at least.
You said that you've been paying attention to a lot of what he said, and I have so many questions. Like I've been really wanting to talk to like a Yang surrogate or someone in the Yang gang.
Which I'm not any of that.
Do you even have the basic answer? And I could do research on this. I just haven't. I want the easy access to the information.
Yeah.
Do you know if he's giving $1,000 to each person every month?
Yes.
Is he eliminating all government assistance otherwise? If you're already on welfare, is he getting rid of that? Or is this in addition?
I don't think so, because the $1,000 a month would apply to everybody, and there's probably people on government assistance making more than $1,000 a month, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
So is he keeping the people that are on welfare where they are, and then also giving $1,000 to every other person?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know how he's factoring all of that in. But the thing about him is, I'm sure if you were to ask him, he would have an answer, because anytime I've heard him asked about this,
let's get him on the show.
He's very good at explaining why he's doing. Like, when I first heard the $1,000 a month thing to everybody, I was like, this sounds ridiculous. This just sounds like pure socialism. Me coming from a center-right perspective. But when he explained how in Alaska, the citizens make a certain amount per month because of the oil drilling, and that money is going back to the people. This is the same thing. These corporations like Amazon are taxed $0, which is pretty ridiculous when you really think about it.
But that's government. That's public versus private.
But I just mean, if you were to open your own store here in New York City, you're going to be taxed like crazy. So how is that fair as compared to if you open an online retailer that becomes a giant that makes far more money and you're being taxed nothing? So I think his whole idea is he would tax those companies, which are private companies, and the money would go back into the pockets of the American people.
But companies like that are helping people so much already, and they are getting taxed. And it's like,
they're not getting taxed though, because they pay $0 in taxes. That's also why you don't pay taxes on Amazon.
But I pay taxes on Amazon. What am I doing
I think
wrong?
just state tax. I think just if you're, I don't think federal though.
Okay, but so with AOC,
we need a fact checker here.
What do you think about AOC then? And her whole campaign to keep them out of New York, and now that we're
that was ridiculous. That was a terrible idea. I thought.
Right, but
he's not bashing them creating jobs. He's just saying they should be paying some sort of tax rate, just like any other business.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is that radical of an idea.
You know, I just think, you know, here's all these people that are employed by Amazon now that he's saying are going to be replaced by robots, but they're not, and they have these jobs, and Amazon is employing them and keeping
he's not just talking about like Amazon. like the thing that he brings up a lot, for example, is there's some crazy amount, something like 30% of the country's malls are going to be going out of business within the next few years. And it is true. You go to most malls. I mean, I know Roosevelt Field Mall by us like does very well. But you go to most malls, like the Source Mall by there, it is a ghost town.
I miss the Source.
Yeah, these malls are going to go out of business. And why are they going out of business? It is because of Amazon.com. Yeah. And I agree, Amazon is creating jobs, but in turn, they are also destroying jobs from things like smaller malls.
I mean,
it's the free market. I agree.
Yeah.
This is just what happens. But I do think some people need to address this. And have you ever heard Trump talk about automation or artificial intelligence at all? I haven't heard him say anything about it.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but I think he's addressing everything. And I think Yang is out there. Again, it's great. He's bringing this to the conversation. It's nice that he has so much traction. He seems to have a very loyal fan base.
Oh, yeah.
I always associate his supporters with like Ron Paul supporters.
I knew you were going to say
it. It just feels like they just drifted away from Ron Paul and it's Yang.
And Tulsi Gabbard. A lot of Ron Paul's people are pro Tulsi Gabbard because she echoes the non-interventionist foreign policy.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should throw this in here. I know a huge deal of this audience are Trump supporters, and I think that the I don't know, natural thing to do for a lot of people is to tune out all of these candidates. Yeah. And they're like, I don't subscribe to this. I don't subscribe to the Democrat platform. I mean, I'm a registered Republican, but I do want to hear what these other people have to say. Mm-hmm. Chances are I likely will vote for Trump if it's an Elizabeth Warren or a Bernie Sanders, but because I've been open-minded to hear things that Tulsi Gabbard have said and things that Andrew Yang has said, there's things from both those candidates in particular who are extreme underdogs that really appeal to me. Yeah. So I think people should be at least willing to hear what some of these people say, because Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard in particular are very open to talking to all sides. They're not, that Tulsi is getting bashed just for going on Fox News. She's, and going on Tucker Carlson's show. Yeah. Like you're a white supremacist somehow if you just appear on the show. It's completely ridiculous.
But it's ridiculous. And those are the loudest people complaining. And the thing that the Democrats, it's the Democrats though, the higher ups, if you will, that are trying to control this. And someone like Tulsi is a moderate. Now, I know that she has extreme views, but I'm saying she was out there saying, I think she's a 20-week abortion, sort of let's, make middle ground here.
Yeah, I think she's the only one not for late-term abortion.
Right. So it's that sort of stuff that people are hungry for. And I think that the Democrats are going out of their way to support, granted they're supporting Biden, but to also, they're getting behind people like Warren and Bernie Sanders. And what I think is so funny is, I was just talking about this earlier today, why at this time when they're simultaneously, like, this is the worst time to push these crazy socialist ideas, right? Because it's the time that we have been so divided and our communities have been completely destroyed. And we don't have that sense of unity and things that you need in a community that really makes socialism able to function. Because I just came from Europe and I was over the last few months, I've been jumping over to
which, by the way, you've been like a travel fiend. We should get into that. I've been
going wild. I just decided to up and go, and that's what I've been doing a bunch of. But I got to go to a bunch of different countries. And I went by myself. So I had a lot of opportunity to go speak to people one-on-one. It's not like I'm there with someone and we're in our own conversation. I'm talking to, the people at the restaurants and the bartenders and whoever else. What I found fascinating, I had never been to Denmark before. And Denmark was a country that I said, I understand how the American liberals look at a place like Denmark and just are absolutely in love. I think Denmark is a beautiful nation. I think what they're doing it well. And they're socialist, but it works for them. You can't bring those sort of ideas over here. They have their own little world, their little community. And as a whole, those citizens do, for the most part, they're on board with things when I talk to them about getting taxed more for hard liquor over beer because they're like, yeah, well, hard liquor, is worse for you than beer. So the government kind of wants to punish you and try to keep you from doing that because we're all on socialized medicine.
Which is very Mike Bloomberg,
Yes.
that we want to tax sodas even if it's poor people consuming it because it increases diabetes, and it's extremely nanny state.
Exactly. And that's the thing where, listen, if you have a populace that's cool with that, then go for it. And the thing is that was one of those things, like, okay.
Which, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt you there, but it's the same thing. They would totally be on board with these things Beto O'Rourke said about, trading in your guns. That's not going to happen in America.
No. And it sounds great over there. And, the way that they operate, it works for them. Same thing with Norway. I was talking to this bartender there and he was so angry. The first thing he said when he found out that I was American, he started talking about Trump. And so I listen. I don't really want to fight anybody.
Yeah, you don't want to go, I love Trump.
But the thing is, I ultimately end up saying that. I say, no, I support him. And listen, this is what's good for America. And, and I'll criticize Trump too. Just because I support him doesn't mean that I can't criticize him or say like, yeah, sometimes I wish he wouldn't tweet that. But, I want to hear what they have to say because I don't really want to debate anybody when I'm having these conversations. I really want you to change my mind. And a lot of times for someone like this who comes at me so angrily, I just say, okay, give it to me. And he makes a lot of good points. But ultimately, at the end of that conversation, it was really fun to say, okay, totally get it. We're in Norway. This works for you. But what happens when, I don't know, Germany comes in and just starts to bomb you guys? Like, what do you do? And he's like, well, And I was like, we come save you, right? Like, you guys are a wonderful Western nation. You're our allies. You're great. You're minding your own business. And someone just came and attacked you. What do you do?
Yeah.
And it's like, you call America. So, hey, that works for you. We got to keep ourselves in check over here. We just operate completely differently. We got to do what's best for us to keep us strong enough to be able to protect you. Because really what's happening now is all these little European nations are almost like states for us, right? Like the way that states were supposed to be their own nation state and they could have their own laws and function in their own way. That's basically how we're treating Europe in a way. That it's like, okay, you guys can do this cute little thing. You're all agreeing on socialism and you want to have these taxes and whatever. But like the federal government that the federal government in our country is to, it's number one is national security and defense. Like we're basically also doing that for them over there.
Yeah.
And they do have their own militaries, but ultimately it's us.
It's funny you say this too, because I am, openly a very non-interventionist foreign policy guy. Mm-hmm. I like Ron Paul. I like Tulsi Gabbard and the non-interventionist stuff, but I do try to hear all sides on things. And when I used to talk about this with Jack Murphy, the debate he would say, the argument he would make, which is similar to what you're saying, he's like, all right, if we pull out of all these military bases, we pull out of Germany, we pull out of Japan, you don't think China is going to have a presence there? Right. And it's a very valid argument.
Right. Yeah.
You're right.
And that's the thing. I'm by far no expert in foreign policy or even anything going on in our own country. But it's just, to me, there's that basic element. And that's where I say these people in this country that want to implement these socialist things, it's great when it works. But on our level, you can't do it. And quite frankly, I mean, it's cute to me to hear people be like, yeah, the government can objectively tax me, more because they think this is bad for me. But imagining that happening in America, like, no way. And that's why when it happens, I wish more people would speak up. But when you're in a place like New York and it's Bloomberg doing it, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. And you were saying on the train ride here, it's crazy that we have these like kids who are coached by their parents creating policy, like people are talking about that Greta Thunberg girl winning the Nobel Prize. And it's like,
she didn't win, but she was nominated.
Yeah, no, but the idea of her possibly winning a Nobel Prize. I didn't know they even gave it out yet, to be honest. I don't really follow it. But
yeah, they gave it out. It wasn't to her.
But yeah, the idea that she would win, and it's like, for what? I know that she's passionate about this subject, but it's also, and if you say anything to criticize her, there are people on the left who will say the science is behind her, but there's no science out there saying the world is going to actually end in 10 years. Like, it is as alarmist as it gets. I do think we need to be looking at what's going on with climate change, but the alarmist people are really overpowering everyone else's voices of the reality of the situation.
Right. Yeah. No. The biggest thing with the climate change debate with me is I'm all for environmentalism and protecting the earth and doing everything that we can to treat it well. But you can't conflate environmentalism with climate change, because what they're saying is, the oceans are filled with plastic and, this, that. And I'm like, yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
We should be doing things to get rid of the plastic in the ocean. Absolutely. But that doesn't equate with the argument that you're saying that we need to give billions of dollars towards this organization so that we can keep the temperature down of the earth. The arguments are, they go with the emotional look at what we can see, right in front of us as a problem, and that is the bigger problem of climate change. So give money, believe in it.
Yeah, we also know the carbon footprint of U.S. is nothing on the carbon footprint of India or China, and we're all living on the same planet.
And that's where people, me included, are saying, go after these nations. Go after the fact that, where was it? I somewhere recently, it was in India, I want to say. They were showing video out of India of all the smog one day, I guess the weather on top of the smog and all the factories.
Sure.
It was making people incredibly sick to be there. That to me is disgusting. Something needs to be done about that. That is cruel. That is inhuman to me. Inhumane. But that needs to be looked at. But when you're over here saying, that was another thing I love to talk to people in Europe about. We had to pull out the Paris Accord. What are we benefiting from it? We're already following the rules. We're doing the best we can. Can we be better? Absolutely. But we're not the big problem. We can't just throw money at your organization so that you guys can all meet and talk about what's best when you're really not going after the real problem. I don't know what it takes to get China to act. I don't know what it takes to get India to act. I don't know, if it's tariffs or what it takes to make it happen. But, I get a little bit frustrated when you're trying to just use the Greta as your mask so that we can't attack you, for saying
yeah, because then you're attacking children.
Because then you're attacking children, and they're just putting her out there as a human shield. And it's where are the scientists?
Yeah.
Show us the scientists. Why are the scientists not the ones out on this boat screaming?
I think there are some scientists who will go along with someone like her, but I think the mainstream scientists would agree it's alarmist. I do think what's going on is a problem, but it's not at the rate of what's being said. You know what I wanted to ask you about, totally off the topic of this stuff, because I don't want to get too political here.
Yeah, no, it's
but
no
people
fun.
might wonder, what is it that you want to accomplish through this following on Twitter? Because in the past, 2 years in particular, I've seen your following really grow from these major tweets, and people might be wondering, are you trying to become the next? I'm trying to think. It wouldn't be Tommy Lahren, but someone like Catherine Timp, for example. You know her, right? Has some witty tweets and does some stand-up comedy and is regular on Fox News, is making a great living from it. Is that the goal that you're hoping to accomplish? I
think something that a lot of people criticize me on is actually that I'm in it without a goal. And people are starting to say to me, what are you doing? And I'm just I'm literally just here to have fun.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people say, we want you, it's a big joke. Am I going to start a podcast? But I just go, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? I don't know what.
But you have a great take on stuff,
thank you. It's really fun to me.
Yeah.
It is. And if I knew a way, I really appreciate all the people that reach out to me. I have people in my DMs or just tweeting at me, thanking me for bringing a little bit of joy to their day. And
when I think of people in my DMs, I think of if it's women, that dick pics, not thanking you for your tweets.
No, I get a lot of really sweet people. I get a lot of sweet people, and I love it. And when they say, I think you should do this, I think you should do that, I'm all for it. If that's what people want, is to hear more takes. It's just, what is my take on top of everyone else's take? What is the podcast?
It's just funny because especially here in a capitalist country, and you're openly capitalist, there always is an end game to profit. we just picked up a sponsor, which is great, Fort Scott Munitions. I'm not doing like a live read for them for this show because there's actually 5 Mondays in December. So, you know, it adds. So I'm just going to have them for all the Chris shows. But I mean, for example, I love doing this show with Chris, who, by the way, I didn't mention at the top, is doing a training course this week. That's why he's out this show. So this will happen now and again. His schedule is way busier than mine. And, you know, we want to keep pumping these out every week regardless. But anyway, like, we love doing the show, but we eventually do want this show to blow up and to be able to make a living doing this. You know, that's just part of capitalism. And,
right, but you guys are both...
And still put out quality content. I mean, Joe Rogan, I love the fact that it's remains free, but he's got these great sponsors because it's billions of people listening every year.
Right, but this is your talent. This is your career. You're great at this, and this is what you want to do, and absolutely you should be making money from it. And Chris too. I mean, Chris is a great speaker, and he's got a great take, and I'm glad to be filling in for him today, if you will. I'm a little bit less tough, that's for sure, but
you're sort of filling. I mean, you're a
no,
guest.
I'm not
on
filling
here.
in. I'm a guest, and he's not here. But because it would be you and him, I'm just going to say I'm filling in as a much less tough Tonto. But yeah, no, I don't. Again, I'm not opposed to doing anything. That's the thing. I'm not opposed to doing anything. I just don't have a direction or a goal right now. I'm just having fun. I'm very thankful and honored, whatever you want to call it, that people follow me. They have fun, and I just. For the people who say that I bring them a laugh or some joy to their day, I mean, that's just so cool.
Especially because Twitter has become a platform for so much anger, which I should mention is part of why Chris got off of it. I feel like he got so wrapped up in the anger over politics, and yeah, he admits like he became way too into it and he's very compulsive like that, where he was just like, all right, I'm going to get off of this completely. This is taking up too much of my time. I want to stay positive, have a good mindset. And it is easy to feed into the negativity, and you just have a fun take on everything.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's to me, it's just the perspective on it. So I can have someone say something really nasty, but it's like I can laugh at how nasty it is, and I don't think that's anything other than. I think I went through this weird evolution, and it's kind of showed in this this political arena, if you will, because I'm not a pundit or anything, but I don't take anything personal. Nothing's personal to me. So I think over the years, when I was younger, I always say I was afraid of the world, and I took everything personally. And then I started getting into WWE, and I found out how to be tough and how to be, I wanted to be Lita, and I would dress like her. I dyed my hair red, and
I wish I could have seen this.
Oh, I have pictures.
Oh, you got to send pictures.
Oh, yeah. We'll
post it on Instagram.
I have actually a lot of pictures with Lita too. I used to go meet her all the time. She was my idol, and she actually. I want to, as like a human being and as an adult, I want to just personally thank her. Maybe I'll tweet at her or something, because she was such an idol to me for such a scared person, for such a scared girl, that as she helped me just get tough. And I just looked at her and I was like, man, I want to be like her. And she's just tough, but she was also so sweet in real life, that I think I just absolutely admired her. But, so I went from scared to taking everything personal to tough, but still taking everything personal. And then at some point in more recent years, I had that same sort of, I could be tougher. I wasn't so afraid of the world. And then I just wasn't taking anything personal. Even in my most personal relationships, I just gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I just said, you know what, if they're yelling at me, it might not be about me. And if all I can do is just try not to hurt anyone and go about my day. So I think with that on Twitter, it's that every single day in every interaction. It's not personal. So it's really easy if you give in and take it personally to get cynical. And I feel like getting cynical is what takes a lot of people out, takes a lot of people down. And I feel like,
including Chris, who was like, I got to get off.
But the thing is,
and he said to me the other day, he was like, because Chris, and he was like, how many followers does Kate Hyde have now? And what you said, like 20,000?
19, yeah.
Well, yeah, whatever, same thing.
Don't
yeah. And Chris was just like, he was like, man, I probably shouldn't have got off of there. Probably should have just suspended the account for a little bit and gotten back on. And I'm like, yeah, dude. we'd be getting more followers and more listeners of the show. But he just needed a break from it.
Yeah, and that's great. And Chris, the thing with Chris too is that he's someone I don't want to look at Chris and be like, you shouldn't take it personal. I mean, dude, he was involved in such a big component of what was going on in the news and all these people. You know, he was taking it personal and probably still is. And I can't look at his situation and say he shouldn't do that. I'm just saying I've had the ability not to, and that has helped me. But you know, one of my things is there are very few people that I can't really take a step back and just be like, they're human. Like, let's, you know, I can criticize them and their politics, whatever, but I'm not going to go after them personally or whatever. And there's two people that I just still like to poke at a lot. And
I know one of them.
Which? Who?
John Fugelsang.
No. Long story short, I'm off of.
You squashed the beef with John Fugelsang?
Yeah, I won't get into it, but,
wow,
but I'm not going after him anymore.
Okay.
It wasn't fair to do. I felt like I was going after him too personally, and I didn't realize I was doing it. And then I said, you know what, this isn't fun anymore.
I know him, so yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, because I worked at Sirius XM, and you know he was in the building. I board opted his show one time. Yeah.
I still have a dream of having coffee with him, and that is again.
He's in New York City, so.
Dude. If you can get it, I would start a podcast if he would agree to be my first guest, because I don't want to go after him. I don't want to attack him.
I'm friends with Jorge, who's his producer, who's a great dude. Yeah.
I just want to speak to him.
Yeah.
But I think he would be so much fun because he's another one. He's a comedian. But you know, maybe part of his thing is he takes things too personally. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
like Tim Dillon we were talking about on the way here. Yeah. You know, he made a name for himself off that Meghan McCain impression, and Meghan McCain blocked him on Twitter. Oh. And he's like, it really would be funny if she could kind of take the joke and we could do something together.
Yeah,
you know? But anyway, so who are the two people?
So, the one person, there's a guy and a girl. The one is Bill Ayers, who was the head of the Weather Underground.
Yeah.
Who bombed the Pentagon. He's a domestic terrorist, and he is still roaming around as like an icon, as a teacher, as a professor, you know, that he just kind of gets a complete pass. He didn't even say, I'm sorry, I was a terrorist. He just gets a pass, and he's out there doing things. So every time he says something, I do go after him because I just go, the nerve. You know, I'm very anti-terrorist across the board.
Sure. It's a good stance to have.
Yeah, right. It's not that controversial. But yeah, so there's him. And then the other one, which I thought was so funny once I met Chris, was I always had a thing against Susan Rice. So she is one that I guess I'm saying I could see why he takes things personal. That's a direct hit on him. That's a totally different story. But she's someone that I cannot get over the fact that she went out there on those Sunday shows knowing it was a lie. She had no business being out there. That wasn't her position. She was just the one willing to do it because no one else wanted to. And then she only went up the ranks and she became, you know, national security advisor. I mean, just the ridiculousness. I felt like Obama was just protecting her to no end because of what she was willing to do to protect them. And there was something about her that I just still will go after her and hit all the time. But anyway, just to bring it back, so I feel like Chris, if he wants to take her personally, go for it. I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, you are very cognizant though of like, this is too far. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to tweet this out for this reason. And I think a lot of people do get wrapped up into Twitter and forget that. I mean, the best example I could really think of is Roseanne with the Valerie Jarrett thing. And it's like, if she could go back in time, I mean, she lost this huge show she had. Mm-hmm. And for her, I don't know if she has, you know, air quotes, fuck you money where it doesn't really matter to her anymore. Mm-hmm. But I mean, she lost this giant gig over a tweet that I don't think she really intended to be as bad as, you know.
No, and as she said, she didn't even realize what she was saying. It wasn't even like, oh no, I made the racist tweet. She was like, I didn't realize it was racist. I didn't know she was black.
Yeah, because you know what's the funny thing is I think people are like, oh yeah. But then if you look at a picture of her, it's understandable because she's like, yeah, I thought she was Jewish, and Roseanne is Jewish, you know. Valerie Jarrett does not look extremely black, so I actually understand that you could make that mistake.
Yeah, and she made the comment, and like Roseanne, I mean, I think I saw her for the first time after that on the Joe Rogan podcast, and she was coming out and she was saying, you know, this isn't even about my job. It's about everyone else that has lost their job because of this. Can you please just fire me, but keep this thing going? You know, it's not even about her losing the gig. It's just so unfortunate that because we're in such a PC culture, and again, there's always a conspiracy that since she's
pro-Trump.
Yeah, pro-Trump, that, you know, they were just tired of her and they wanted her out. And this was just, you know, it's kind of like the impeachment thing. Like, okay, we just want her out. What is she going to do to give us the easy out here? Yeah, it's just, it's unfortunate.
I mean, I think everybody listening who's on social media, you do have to really think about everything before you put it out there.
Yeah.
Which even sucks for me because right now I am not working in media full time, but I do have to always wonder, like, if I tweet this out, does this have a connection to this? Mm-hmm. Could this look bad for this? And it does suck that we have to think about all that stuff. But for example, I worked with a girl who was very left wing when I was at Sirius. And Steve Bannon was in the administration. She wrote a bunch of stuff about Steve Bannon. But Steve Bannon at the same time also had a show on Sirius XM. And I had to let her know, like, this might not be the best thing to tweet out because he's technically still employed by your employer. Uh-huh. So, like, if they see this, it could be a reason to bring something up. Like, hey, you're bad-mouthing a fellow employee, technically.
Yeah.
It just, you know, it's the whole free speech thing, but you do have to be aware of when you're tweeting stuff. Can this make me look bad? Can this make me possibly lose my job? Mm-hmm. Everybody needs to be aware of that.
I think one of the funniest things on Twitter is I make a joke of it all the time, but I cannot believe that anyone tweets curses out on Twitter.
Curses just in general?
Yeah.
I have? Well, why is that a big deal?
I think I'm like, you have the moment to think about how to not put a curse in this tweet, and you're just cursing like you're randomly saying it on the street, and you're just plastering it out there. I just feel like just give it one more second of thought and say it without the curse. Just because.
But that means you're almost like a Jerry Seinfeld. You know, like how Jerry Seinfeld always works clean.
Okay, so I guess I'm saying that for me personally, that's the way that I think of it. But I also just laugh when other people. I guess you know what it is. It's not just that they tweet curses. It's people, I guess, to your point, that are in the industry or have a public persona, or you know, could be. Just maybe want to watch what they say on a little bit, and they're being so casual with the F word. I'm like, you work for like a congressman. Like, what are you doing? Just don't tweet that. You know?
Yeah, but nowadays it doesn't really matter. I feel like look at our president. You know what I mean? He says whatever the fuck he wants. So
yeah, but I mean, listen, I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world. To me, I just laugh because I'm like, it's just such a simple thing to watch.
I think it's something that you're into stylistically. Like I said, I think you're like a Jerry Seinfeld of Twitter. And Jerry Seinfeld kind of prides himself on that, how he's able to work clean and still make everything funny. And
I mean, maybe I'm being a total grandma here, but I mean, again, it's not even like a podcast. You know, I could like throw out a curse word and it just comes out. You know, you're thinking it's happening fast. I'm just saying when you have a moment to think about it.
You know, it's funny. I've had to tell people on podcasts, like, don't, you know, I think it's fine to curse on podcasts, but then people take advantage of that, and then fuck becomes every other word. Mm. And I'm like, this is kind of unlistenable. And for some reason, people take offense to that. So
yeah,
I don't get it. You know what? I want to talk about something completely different topic. Mike, could you hear me? Because I was going to say, Mike, our engineer, is here. So you and I, on the way here, we're seeing all those trucks with the like air quotes, like weed snacks and all that crap, yeah. The edibles. So wait, Mike, you have a podcast which you could plug, which is like marijuana based.
Yep, the cannabis connoisseur I produce. Yeah, but I see those things all the time.
So what's the deal, man? Because they don't actually get you high, from what I know. But and if you're a tourist in New York City, it's probably so easy to fall into like, oh, weed is pretty much it. And you smell weed everywhere you go in New York City. It's no longer a counterculture thing.
I know, it's crazy. So those trucks, they usually sell CBD. This candy. This is like the CBD candies, and you can get anything. They have CBD drinks at the store now.
Yeah.
So CBD is just basically like THC is the stuff that gets you all like and goofy, and that's what gets you like with the typical like weed high that we recognize. A CBD, it kind of gets you more. It gives you more like an energy boost. There's different strains that do different things, but it's the other side of marijuana that gets people like more relaxed but still gives you a little boost of energy. But it doesn't get you like stoned.
But you think,
quote,
because a lot of people seem to think it's complete snake oil, because the only experience I have with CBD is, those juice generation places around here, right? We sound so New York, by the way, but like, they have acai bowls now with CBD oil, and I got one.
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything, and I wasn't expecting to necessarily, because I've heard a lot of people say it's like bullshit, basically.
Yeah, they probably didn't give you much of it, or I don't know what these people put in. And those trucks, you never know. Like, you never know what they're doing, if they're giving you even anything. So you never know. But yeah.
But you've had CBD oil.
Oh yeah.
What's your
CBD's
experience
great.
with it?
Yeah, it gets me more focused, more relaxed. There's different limonines and pinines, and those tinctures, they give you that euphoric effect. They give you that relaxed feeling, and especially taking something like CBD, it'll give you that little kick instead of like THC. Something THC based will get you like mopey and like too chilled out.
I feel like it pretty much is legalized in New York City at this point, like unofficially, right? I mean, because on the way here, you smelled weed at certain.
I smell it no matter what block I'm on.
Yeah.
You get a whiff of it somewhere.
Yeah, everybody's smoking somewhere. It's crazy. I totally relate to that. It's everywhere. Someone's smoking weed. It's
I mean, which is good. I'm glad people aren't getting arrested for it for the most part, right? I mean, there are times in New York City where it does happen, right? But worst thing that could happen, I mean, you would know better than me, is they're going to take it away from you pretty much, right?
I think you gotta have a lot. I forget the exact amount, but for you to get really in a lot of trouble, you got you got like a pillowcase full.
So is that the difference now? That's the only difference, is that they're just not cracking down on you having it, and that's why it's out there more?
It's decriminalized. So they can't do anything if you have if you have like a little bit of weed on you, like you think an 8 ounce or less or something like that, you're fine. But
they'll confiscate it though, possibly, right? If you're being obnoxious, or
I don't think they can either, because it's decriminalized. They can't. It's not a criminal offense if it's like under a certain amount. I'm pretty sure it's 8 ounces, which is like a little sandwich bag, like that much. But if you have more than that, or I forget the exact amount, then they can take it away or have some type of criminal action against you. But yeah, that's why they don't. And they have bigger fish to fry. There's already talks of this getting to the federal level. They're already starting in talks of getting it legalized at a federal level, but we'll see. But yeah, they're in talks of all this stuff becoming legalized completely already. So the cops aren't going to spend their time, busting people for little amounts of weed.
Wow. What about other drugs? Do you know? Because I feel like I see so many people on everything other than weed. I don't know what it is, but that's a real problem.
Oh yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
Is that also decriminalized?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think
no. Some of the stuff doctors are prescribing.
Yeah, that's the.
I mean, it's legal heroin, basically.
Right, like opioids, like they said oxycodone and all this stuff, like they're prescribing that, and that's dangerous. Like,
of course,
you can prescribe marijuana, which is it's not addictive like this stuff. So it's just there's a lot of illegal stuff. Like some of the stuff that is legal is more dangerous than stuff like weed. But yeah, I mean, all drugs are different. Like I think mushrooms. Colorado is in the process of legalizing that. I don't know where they're at with it, but they're in the process of legalizing mushrooms, like the psychedelic ones.
Yeah, and which for people who don't know much about the subject. And I've never done them, but I have listened to people talk about and have read up on people who are saying that mushrooms are curing people's depression. They're, all different types of psychedelics are having these like amazing effects, and not getting extremely high on them, but like a low dose of it are curing all different types of anxiety people are having. And I'm all for that, as opposed to doctors prescribing, I mean, what we were saying before, I mean, like, what are all the pills they're prescribing? I can't even think off the top of my head. Right? Oxycodone, of course, but
so many bad ones. Like, you don't know what's it's just addicting, and that's always such a problem too. Like, people getting hooked in all these drugs that are prescribed, and it's so not good.
8th Avenue is one of the scariest streets to walk down. I saw a guy I was just flooded with people clearly on drugs the other day. It was broad daylight, but there was one guy slumped over and he had like a needle in his jacket just dangling. And I'm like, what does it take to just get a little bit of this cleaned up? Should not. I'm right up the block from Penn Station.
Well, there's a methadone clinic right there. That's how you're getting all these people, because I guess they'll get little samples to help dwindle them off it, but they just go for the fix, and then they beg for money, and it's really, really bad though in that area. My girlfriend works around there, and it's and I've one of my offices for my day job. They're by there. It's bad. It's so bad. It's like, there's just so many people on drugs and homeless people. There's so many boxes, and It's wild.
Because it's beyond them even just being there. It's some of them are really scary. They're yelling, they're threatening.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going to do, and they don't know what they're going to do. They're on drugs. I just feel like that's a huge problem that should be.
Oh yeah, it's
worked
so
on
bad.
here.
And that's why I think, because we were talking about the Democratic primaries and all that, that's why I just think these people like Mike Bloomberg are so out of touch when he recently said that I think decriminalizing marijuana is like the worst thing we've ever done. I'm like, really, dude? I don't know. Have you walked around New York City lately? Like, that is really not the problem.
I think it's going to change things too. Like if it is like legal at a federal level, it's going to change the game, and a lot of people don't know how they can capitalize on it yet. Like that guy Bloomberg, like he owns everything. He wants to know how he can make money off stuff like that before they make it legal. Like they want to know. I mean, this is just my opinion, but I think that they want to make it like. The reason why it's not legal at a federal level is people are still learning more about it and how they can monetize and capitalize on the whole making it federally legal. The people, the big people, the ones that are, you know what I mean, the people with the big pockets. But that's just my opinion.
But I just wanted to bring you on for that because you actually have a marijuana-based podcast. So you plug it again, actually.
It's the Cannabis Connoisseur podcast. It's Jack Stone and Ryan Chavez. I help produce the podcast. Check them out, iTunes, Spotify. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, any podcast coming out of here, out of Gotham that's like interesting, even though we're just, do our own independent thing out of here, I like to bring up. But yeah, you and I actually were talking about it on the way here because we saw all those trucks of the edibles. And yeah, like if you're a tourist, I could totally see getting sucked into that. And they probably have like one of those lollipops, and they're like, I'm not feeling anything.
Probably, I don't know. I've never given it a shot. They just showed up all of a sudden out of nowhere, all those trucks, and they just screamed like gimmick. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's because of the whole CBD oil thing, which once again, like I don't know, but then again, if CBD oil company wants to sponsor us, I'm on board. I'll say that it's the most effective thing in the world. No, I actually would like to see like the more, from what I've heard, it seems like the experts are kind of split on the effectiveness of it, whether it's, whether it works or not, but it might work on some people and others not so much.
Yeah. It's
much like melatonin. If you take, a lot of people, it doesn't have any effect on their sleeping, and other people like myself swear by it. So
yeah, I guess everyone just reacts differently to things.
But I do think the prescribed drugs in New York are way more of the problem, and that actually goes into one half of our Congress people are totally against the NRA. The other half love the NRA, for example. People on both sides are really being paid by Big Pharma, and they're the people prescribing people drugs that wind up on the street here in New York City, even worse in Los Angeles. And that's a problem that's not really being addressed.
Yeah, and I think they need to get on it soon. I know there's, the campaigns against opioids and whatnot, but I just don't think it's enough. I don't think we're really aware of just the major problem.
And if you're addicted to the drug, it's too late. I mean,
right.
You're not going to get these people off of it. They're on the streets. They're not making a living. No one is looking to hire someone who is a non-functioning drug addict.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. I just think that I hope that in the next few months, hopefully, but in the next few years, we really crack down on that, and it's people are made more aware of it. I think we're only just beginning, but it's only going to continue to grow. Speaking of, just quickly, did you see?
We're freestyling here. We're hitting a lot of different topics. I like it.
Did you see was it South Dakota? South Dakota or North Dakota? I don't remember right now. But they have a meth problem in the state apparently, and they launched a new campaign to tackle meth, and the slogan is "We're on it." It's meth. Period. We're on it.
Yeah, that's not a good slogan.
Not a good slogan.
So did you have some good tweets for that?
I don't even think I did. I think I just laughed.
It was too self-explanatory.
Yeah, you can't say anything about that. To me, it's just I imagined a guy, coming home to his family and being like, hey guys, like, sorry if I'm just like out of it at dinner. We're doing this new campaign in the governor's office. We just need to come up with like a slogan to tackle this meth problem we got going on here. And someone in the family cracking a joke like, yeah, you guys are on it. Like, and then, and they all laugh about it. And the guy brings the joke into work the next day and like, they don't realize it's a joke. I just imagine it being one of those things that one person was really aware and then the rest were like, hey, that's a great slogan. Let's go with it. Yeah, let's roll. Like, great job, Ron.
I wonder if it was South Dakota. I went to South Dakota and hung out with Matt Bierkant, who was one of the guys who served with Bo Bergdahl, who I just met through podcasting. He was like, hey, come stay at my place.
Neat.
But it was South Dakota was awesome. And that's actually one of the things with the podcast. I think a lot of these places that Chris does these tactical training classes at are middle America, where elitists from places like here in New York City say, like, oh, there's nothing to do there. There is a ton to do in South Dakota. I had a great time. Like nature stuff in terms of seeing Badlands National Park and all that. Amazing time. So, yeah, definitely visit some of those flyover states, which a lot of people who listening are from anyway. But I dig it all.
I was really into seeing Mount Rushmore, and I was gonna plan, because
Is it South Dakota?
I think it might be north.
Okay.
And I can't remember the difference between the two right now.
And Mike walked away, so you can't fact check us.
Oh man, one of them. But I was really into seeing Mount Rushmore.
I was there many years ago when I was younger, and I think when you're younger, you don't truly appreciate it.
Yeah. I just looked up like details on the trip with my uncle when we were planning it, and we found a YouTube video where a guy just films the whole experience of driving, parking the car, walking up, looking at it. And we just said, okay, well, we kind of feel like we were just there already. This guy gave such a good little tour of Mount Rushmore that we were like, oh yeah, we don't need to do that now. Maybe if we end up there soon, we'll get back. But I mean, I'd still like to see it. But we ended our rush to get out there, if you will.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, do Badlands National Park, which I absolutely loved.
All right.
So, like, what's on the future horizons for you? It doesn't sound like you have anything set in stone, but I know you've kind of teased doing your own podcast at some point on Twitter. I think it would be cool if you did. I would come on, but
yeah, I would totally have you on. I would just have you just do it for me. It should just be like this, because I couldn't handle it myself. You should be my producer.
I'm totally in.
All right, well, we'll talk about it. Yeah, maybe a podcast.
I think you should. Because I think you have great takes on things, and I could see you being on with comedians, being on with some political commentators who can take things jokingly. Like I don't picture you sitting down with like Brett Hume, but Greg Gutfeld, yes.
What about can we make a campaign to get John Fugelsang on a podcast with me?
I could talk to Jorge. Yo, Jorge, hook us up, man. I would love
it. I respect John Fugelsang. But
you're not telling us the story.
It was a big joke. I used to do Fugelsanging. I used to poke fun at him, and then I just stopped. But I think I think just by his Twitter feed, you can see that I think he's doing exactly what I've said, that he just takes things personally.
I mean, he lives in New York City. He does a show out in New York City. Yeah. I think we could get him in these very studios But do you think there's a big audience for this? Like, do you think
I'm the audience of one. That's all I need.
Like, is there this big outcry that you have to interview John Fugelsang?
No, this is a personal fulfillment thing.
Yeah.
Well, if there's people out there that think that I might be good at something and they want to hear it, let me know. Tweet at me. And let me know. I don't.
Which, by the way, is at Kate Hyde NY, which I forgot for a second because there's an at Kate Hyde that is definitely not you.
Definitely not me. No, she lives in England, and Twitter recently said that they were going to, clear all of the accounts that were no longer used. But she tweets just enough. I think she's like rarely on there, but she's totally just enough that they're not going to wipe her account. So I can't go and snipe the name.
And I remember the same thing happened to Tom Green. He wanted at Tom Green, but there's another guy, and Tom was like, "Hey, I'll purchase your account or something." This guy would not let go.
I mean, at this point, I'm Kate Hyde NY. Even if I move, it's just
you're from New York.
It fits.
Yeah.
It fits. When I got the accent sometimes.
Not really.
No,
you and I kind of have neutral. We don't sound very New York.
No, maybe that's because of the area we grew up in, that it's not like a heavy accent area. If
you listen to old radio with me from like WRHU days where I went to college at Hofstra University, I have more New York. It's smoothed out over the years.
You got the coffee talk thing going on.
Yeah, it's not that. I do remember I interviewed Bones from the band Stuck Mojo, and I remember bringing him on because I had this demo, and I was like, "Hey, we got on Bones from Stuck Mojo. How you doing?" That was like my introduction. And I was like, this sounds very New York.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it at the time.
Do you find that people that are outside of New York, they tell you that they're like, oh yeah, I hear the accent?
No, not anymore. No.
Because I have some people that it's mostly people around here that they're like, wow, I thought you were from Texas or, somewhere random. I'm like, no, dude, I'm from here. But people from outside of here really badly want to identify me as being from Long Island, New York.Ey're like, oh yeah, I definitely hear the accent. And I think sometimes if maybe I get mad or frustrated, it might come out a little bit, but they want to claim that I have it more than I do. And I'm like, I do not have an accent. You need to come to Long Island and hear the accent.
Do you think Chris has like a Colorado? He's got some accent, and I can't even put my finger on what it is.
I don't know what it is. It's definitely something. I don't know.
He has an accent.
Yeah.
This is funny. He was talking on the last episode we recorded about someone that he served with in Benghazi as a contractor. I don't remember if it was Boone or one of them, but he was like, yeah, he's a redneck from Colorado. I'm like, dude, you're a redneck from Colorado. Just because you're a Mexican doesn't make you less of a... Like, if you just heard Chris's voice, he fits that stereotype. Yeah. Come on, man.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what the accent is, but it's like, yeah, like, I can't even do it.
No,
it's
not
very...
No, that was
not it at all. Yeah, I know. This is the only accent I could do. But, yeah.
So we've learned that you think Joe Biden will be the nominee.
I do still think he'll be the nominee. I'm not saying 100%. I've just always felt it. I think he will get it. And like I said, I think he's so heavily associated with Obama that people really want that. Yeah, I keep saying Hillary, and I don't know if I'm being serious when I say this. I haven't figured out if I'm serious about this or not yet, but I keep saying that she's going to jump in.
It would be crazy. It would be, I mean, Bloomberg jumping in at the time that he did. It's like, really, man?
That's the thing. It's not too late. And she does better if she doesn't jump in any earlier than she has to, because listen, we know her name. We know that, I think
we know she killed Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, I think she organized it. No, I think that she knows that there's enough people, quote, angry that Trump won, that if she does the right moves this time, which is actually goes out on the ground and goes to Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, that maybe she can get some traction. But I think what they're not considering is there's a lot more people, I think, that like Trump after he got elected.
It's true.
Yeah, that I don't think it's going to be the same game as it was before, just a redo, and they can do it right. I think he's no matter who's in there, he's winning.
I fully agree. So once again, at Kate Hyde NY on Twitter. I already know I'm going to get tweets and Facebook posts of like, where's Chris? Is this just going to become your podcast? And it's like, no. Every now and again, Chris will have like a conflict with his scheduling. So, we'll do an episode like this. But Chris will be back next week. I know that next episode, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to have an episode with Jack Murphy, Army Ranger Green Beret, who most of you guys know, or a lot of you know, talking about the whole Eddie Gallagher and the other two guys, Matt Goldstein and other guy's name escapes my mind, but the three guys that were pardoned, and going to the specifics of it. And Jack is very anti what happened and very open about it and wrote several articles about it. And I think it'd be good to get those takes, because if you've been watching Fox News, the narrative has been completely on the other side. So I would like to have guys on here to, give a take of why this shouldn't have gone down the way that it has. So that should be next episode. I'm looking forward to it. And of course, Chris will be back. Once again, although I'm keeping the live reads for the episodes with Chris, Fort Scott Munitions is sponsoring all the other shows this month. Since there's 5 Mondays in December, I figured I'd skip this one. But you could still use our promo code Battleline for 15% off at fortscottmunitions.com. And we really appreciate them being on board. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We've gotten plenty of reviews on there that have pretty much all been 5 stars, and we're really happy with. It helps us get our visibility up. Or if you subscribe on Spotify, that helps us. What's cool on Spotify, when I look at the stats, I'm able to see what our listeners are listening to music-wise.
Really?
Stuff like that. Yeah, statistics. I'm able to see male and female, age demographic. So it just gives me an idea of who's listening this early on, at least. And we are, of course, looking for more sponsors. So if you are interested in sponsoring, you can email me personally, ianscottoradio@gmail.com. because we're keeping everything, I think, relatively affordable since we're really a newer podcast, but we're trying to keep things going, and that's why we're glad Fort Scott came on early on and is keeping this thing going. Otherwise, Chris and I are just going bankrupt doing a podcast, and that's not what we're looking to do. So, yeah, if you have a company, hey, even if it's CBD oil, any like protein companies, whatever it is, we're looking for all of that. So, ianscottoradio@gmail.com. But if you just have questions for the show, email battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to do like kind of a news set or a I should call it like a mailbag type segment for questions. We've been getting so many guest suggestions, but like we have a lot of those already going on. So I'd kind of prefer if you guys just have a question for me, question for Chris, question about Benghazi. We'll get to all of that. So battlelinepodcast@gmail.com. Is there anything we haven't hit on that you wanted to mention or?
No.
No solid future plans, though, that you... It's so funny. Usually we bring someone on and they have something to plug. This is... Although, actually, to be fair, last episode with Pat Smith, the mother of Sean Smith, she didn't have anything to plug. We were just on to talk, and we like that as well.
Yeah, no. The only thing in my future is eating pizza and hanging out with my cat. So,
hell yeah.
Other than that, who knows?
At Kate Hyde, NY. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
No, when I heard that Chris couldn't be here for this episode, I was like, this would be a perfect episode to talk with Kate about different stuff, because I think Chris wouldn't be as into talking about all the politics right now. I think he's like...
As he should not be. He's very smart to be out of it.
Yeah. And eventually we're going to have a lot of other different people on, people in the movie world, people in the music world. We're trying to keep a really versatile amount of guests on here. So thanks for checking it out, guys. Hope you like this episode. I promise you, Chris will be back next episode.
That's all for this week's Battleline Podcast, but we'll be back on Monday with more American Straight Talk, so make sure you're subscribed. And keep up with the show 24/7 on Facebook and Instagram at Battleline Podcast. Also on Twitter at Battleline Pod. As always, never quit.